She did not eat street food. She did not drink unfiltered water. She did not skip a single precaution. She bought organic kale from a farmer's market on the Big Island of Hawaii. She rinsed it under the tap. She found a slug on the leaf. She removed it. She rinsed the kale again. She put it in a blender with mango and coconut water. She drank the entire glass. 3 weeks later, something was alive inside her brain, and it was growing. She had done everything right, every single thing. It was not enough. This is Diagnosis Glitch. Names have been changed for privacy. This story is based on true events and documented medical cases. Nora is 28 years old and lives in Portland, Oregon. She works at a sustainable design firm. She bikes to work. She reads ingredient labels the way other people read headlines. She owns a blender she uses every morning. Her friends have a running joke that if Nora cannot pronounce every ingredient, she will not eat it. Jules' patron is the practical one. She books the flights and keeps the group chat organized. Meg Aldine is the easygoing one. She eats cereal for dinner and calls it self-care. Every year, the three of them take a trip together. Last year was Sedona. This year, Nora chose the Big Island of Hawaii. Not Waikiki, not a resort, an Airbnb in Pahoa, a small town in the Puna district on the eastern slope. Rainforest, fruit stands, the kind of place travel blogs call the real Hawaii. Nora sent the listing to the group chat with one word: perfect. She was right about everything, except the part that mattered. Their third morning on the island, Nora drags Jules and Meg to the Hilo farmers market. Wednesday, big market day, over 200 vendors, hand-lettered signs, organic kale, spinach, bok choy, exotic fruit. Nora buys a bunch of kale from a stall near the corner. $4. Dark green leaves, curled tight. She holds the bunch up and smells it. She's happy. This is the trip she wanted. Here's what she does not know. The farm that grew this kale is organic. Organic certification in Hawaii prohibits the molluscicide baits that kill slugs. The semi-slug Parmarion martensi has been established on the Big Island since 2004. It arrived from Southeast Asia with no natural predator. It survives on semi-slugs caught in the Puna district. 77.5% of specimens carried rat lungworm larvae. A blood study found that Big Island residents have higher rates of exposure to this parasite than populations in China, where the worm is endemic and has been a documented public health threat for decades. The kale was grown in this soil. It cost $4. Back at the Airbnb, morning light through the kitchen window. Meg is eating Cheerios from the box. Jules is making coffee. Nora is at the counter, rinsing kale under the tap, separating each curled leaf with her fingers. Jules walks over and looks at the cutting board. A small slug, semi-transparent, roughly the size of a grain of rice, sitting in the fold of a kale leaf. Jules screams. Everyone laughs. Nora picks it off with a paper towel, tosses it, rinses the kale again, puts it in the blender with mango and coconut water, blends, pours, drinks the whole glass. Meg watches from the table. You just found a slug on that. I washed it. It's fine. Here's why it was not fine. A single semi-slug collected in the Puna district was found to carry over 6,800 individual parasites inside its body. Over 6,800 in a slug the size of a grain of rice. Everywhere that slug crawled on those kale leaves, it left slime. Inside the slime, third-stage larvae, infectious, ready to enter a human host. A 2023 University of Hawaii study confirmed that when a slug is physically stressed, picked up, squeezed, removed from a surface, it releases larvae directly into its slime trail. The larvae does not wash off with a rinse. They survive in the folds of curled kale. They survive blending. They are alive, invisible, and tasteless. She removed the slug, the slime stayed. And the water she used to rinse the kale? The Airbnb in Pahoa does not have municipal water. It runs on rooftop rainwater catchment systems. Water collected from the roof into a tank in the backyard. No inspection requirement, no filtration mandate. Scientists have documented slugs entering in properly maintained catchment tanks. The water she used to wash the contaminated kale may itself have carried the same larvae she was trying to remove. She washed contaminated produce with potentially contaminated water. There is no label on the tap. Here's what happened inside Nora's body while she slept. The larvae penetrated the wall of her small intestine and entered her bloodstream. Her blood carried them to her brain. They crossed into the central nervous system and began to develop. As the larvae mature inside the brain, their volume increases by over 1,000 times. That's not a metaphor. It's a measured biological fact. A worm growing 1,000 times its original size inside the organ that makes you who you are. But the human body is a dead-end host. The worm cannot complete its life cycle here. It enters the brain, it grows, and then it has nowhere to go, so it dies. And the dying is the thing that kills. When the worms die, they release proteins. The body floods the brain with eosinophils, the immune cells designed to fight parasitic invaders. The inflammation from the immune response causes more damage than the living worms ever did. The body's defense tears apart the tissue it's trying to save. Nora flew home to Portland. She showed her coworkers the photos, the market, the fruit stands, the rainforest. She did not mention the slug. She had already forgotten about it. 3 weeks later, a headache. Not a normal headache. She will later describe it to a doctor as the worst of her life, and she will say that every day for 6 weeks. Then her skin starts to burn. Not an itch, not a rash, a burning sensation across the entire surface of her body like a cheese grater held flat against the skin. Wearing a shirt becomes uncomfortable. She cannot explain it to anyone because the words do not exist for a pain that lives everywhere and nowhere at once. Tingling in her fingers, neck stiffness, nausea that does not lead to vomiting, just sits there. She goes to urgent care, a 28-year-old woman with a bad headache and nausea. No significant fever. Only 10% of adult rat lungworm patients present with fever. No classic meningitis triad. She does not look sick enough for anyone to take seriously. She's given ibuprofen and told to rest. The intake form asks about international travel. She's not traveled internationally. She went to Hawaii. Hawaii's in the United States. The box stays blank. Nobody asks about locally sourced produce. Nobody asks about farmers market kale. Nobody asks about smoothies. The disease is acquired domestically from food that appears on every wellness menu on the island. The intake forms cannot catch what they're not designed to look for. She gets worse. Shooting pain that moves through her body with no fixed nerve pattern. It appears in her legs, then her neck, then her hands. It moves because the worms are moving. Sensitivity to light and sound. She cannot work. She cannot look at a screen. She goes to the ER. They suspect viral meningitis. Basic workup, sent home. She goes back, sent home again. She starts researching on her own. Late at night, laptop screen too bright for her eyes, but she cannot stop. She types, Slug on Kale, Hawaii, headache. She finds it. Rat lungworm disease. Angiostrongylus cantonensis. She reads the symptoms. Every single one matches. She reads that the semi-slug lives on organic farms in the Puna district. She reads about the slime, about the larvae surviving water, about the catchment tanks. She calls Jules at 2 a.m. I think I know what's wrong with me. She goes back to the ER. She tells the doctor, I need you to test me for rat lungworm disease. I was in Hawaii 3 weeks ago. I ate kale that had a slug on it. Test my spinal fluid for eosinophils. The doctor does not order the test. She was not the first person to say these words in an emergency room. In a documented case on the Big Island, a 50-year-old man ate lettuce from his home garden. He washed it, he put it through a salad spinner, he found a live slug on his plate after several bites. He forced vomiting. It was not enough. He went to an ER and named the parasite himself. The doctor sent him home. He came back, 5 ER visits over 40 days. He was right every time. They were wrong every time. By the time anyone listened, he was on a fentanyl patch at home, hallucinating, unable to tell his dreams from life. Finally, a doctor listens enough to perform a lumbar puncture. Nora lies curled on her side in a hospital bed. A needle is inserted between the vertebrae of her spine into the spinal canal. She's told not to move. She holds completely still through the worst headache of her life while the needle goes in. The headache that follows the procedure from the drop in spinal fluid pressure is its own kind of agony layered on top of the agony she already has. The result? No eosinophils in the cerebral spinal fluid. The test says she's clear. She's told she does not have rat lungworm. But she does. Eosinophils may be completely absent in the spinal fluid early in the infection. Hawaii Department of Health's own clinical protocol states that a negative first result does not rule out the disease. The test must be repeated if suspicion remains. No ER doctor orders a second spinal tap on a patient they already cleared. She's sent home with a medication for anxiety, a condition she does not have. She takes it, she does not get better. She deteriorates, hallucinations, stuttering, short-term memory failing. She asks Jules the same question 3 times in 10 minutes and does not remember asking once. She cannot tell her dreams from her waking life. Jules drives her back to the ER. Jules has printed peer-reviewed medical papers. She puts them on the doctor's desk. Second lumbar puncture. This time, eosinophil is present, elevated. The test that came back clean 2 weeks ago is now positive. An MRI shows linear migration tracts in her brain, not lesions that could be mistaken for something else. Tracts, physical paths of tissue damage where the larva moved through the organ that makes her remember her friends' names and plan trips and blend Kale on a Tuesday morning. She's admitted. IV steroids, IV pain medication. The diagnosis? Eosinophilic meningitis caused by Angiostrongylus catinensis. Her friends asked the doctor what happens if this does not get better. In a documented case on the Big Island, a 23-year-old man, previously healthy, contracted the same disease. He was placed in a coma for 3 months, declared in a persistent vegetative state. His family brought research papers from Southeast Asia to the hospital and begged doctors to try the treatments described in them. He eventually regained consciousness. He could talk, he could eat, but the damage was permanent. His MRI showed migration tracts in the brain. That was the version where it got better. In 2010, in Sydney, Australia, a 19-year-old man named Sam Ballard was at a party with friends. A slug crawled across the patio. Someone dared him to eat it. He swallowed it whole. Same parasite, same worm. He was in a coma for 420 days. He woke up paraplegic. He needed a tracheotomy and a feeding tube. He could not speak. He could cry. He understood everything happening around him every single day. A friend sat next to him and apologized for that night. Sam cried. Sam Ballard died in November 2018. He was 28 years old. His last words to his mother were, "I love you." His mother, when asked why she had not stopped him, said, "No one gets sick from that." Nora was not dared to eat a slug at a party. She made a green smoothie in a sunlit kitchen on a Tuesday morning. Same parasite, same brain. There's a drug called albendazole. It kills the worm. That sounds like the answer. It's not. In a documented case on the Big Island, a patient was hospitalized and started on steroids and pain medication. He began improving. On day 16, doctors added an anti-parasitic drug. He showed initial improvement, then double vision, then exhaustion, then stabbing head pain, then his manual dexterity failed. Within 24 hours, he was comatose. MRI showed inflammation across the brain and cerebellum. Hemorrhagic products scattered everywhere. The drug killed the worms. The dying worms destroyed the brain around them. He was intubated, ventilated, and airlifted. The CDC's position? No anthelminthic drugs have been proven to be effective in treatment, and there's concern that anthelminthics could exacerbate neurological symptoms due to a systematic response to dying worms. In a controlled animal study, the group treated with the drug showed more severe brain inflammation than the untreated group. Nora's doctors discuss albendazole. They decide against it. Serial lumbar punctures to drain fluid and reduce pressure. High-dose corticosteroids, IV pain medication that eventually includes opioids because standard painkillers do not touch this. The worms will die on their own timeline. The goal is to keep her alive until they do. That's the protocol. Meg visits her in the hospital, sits on the edge of the bed, quiet for a long time. "I was eating Cheerios," Meg says. "You were making a smoothie. I thought you were the healthy one." Nora does not laugh, does not cry, just looks at her friend. "I was." Weeks pass. Steroids tapered slowly. Lumbar punctures spaced further apart. Each time the headache builds past a threshold, another needle in the spine, another drain. The worms die on their own schedule. Each death triggers a small inflammatory event. The brain processes them one at a time. Nora is discharged with permanent residual nerve pain in her right leg, independent, functional, changed. She does not go back to the farmer's market in Portland for 3 months. When she finally does, she stands in front of a Kale display and does not pick it up. Here's what I need you to understand. This parasite does not require a passport. Hawaii is the United States. No travel clinic warns you about it. No intake form is designed to catch it. Staff at Hilo Medical Center on the Big Island have publicly stated, "We are considered the ground zero of hospitals in the state perhaps in the country, and caring for folks with rat lungworm disease. That is a hospital on American soil. But it is not only Hawaii. The parasite has been found in slugs and rats across the Gulf Coast, Florida through Louisiana to Texas. A paper published in late 2024 documented the first locally acquired cases in 3 children in Florida, cases that had occurred in 2021 and 2022. American children, continental United States. By 2023, the parasite had been confirmed multiple times in continental Europe for the first time in the sewer systems and surrounding orchards of Valencia, Spain, where vegetables are grown for export across the country. Climate researchers project that as temperatures rise, the slug's habitat will expand into regions where this parasite has never existed before. You do not have to go to Hawaii. You do not have to leave the country. If you travel to the Big Island, cook your produce, wash it with purified water, not tap water, not catchment water, inspect every leaf. If you see a slug or a snail trail on your food, the food is gone, not rinsed, gone. If your Airbnb or rental property uses a rooftop rainwater catchment system, ask the host how it's maintained and filtered. No mandatory inspection exists for these systems. Scientists have documented slugs entering in properly maintained tanks. That water runs through every tap in the house. If you cannot get a clear answer, do not use that water on anything you plan to eat raw. If you come home and weeks later you have the worst headache of your life, burning skin, neck stiffness, tell your doctor where you went. Say these words: I need to rule out rat lungworm disease, Angiostrongylus cantonensis. Test my spinal fluid for eosinophils. If the first test is negative, it needs to be repeated. They will not think of it, you have to. There's no vaccine for this. There's no proven drug cure, and surviving it once does not protect you. Hawaii Department of Health has documented individuals infected 2 and 3 separate times. The biology does not remember you. In July 2025, Franny Brewer, program manager of the Big Island Invasive Species Committee, said this on the record: I know it's very popular, it is very healthy, but if you've not been able to inspect the kale yourself, I would not recommend that you include that. Nora inspected it. She found the slug. She removed it. She washed the leaves. She blended them. She drank the glass. She did everything right. It was not enough. This is Diagnosis Glitch. I'll see you in the next waiting room.